Last but not least, I'd like to label each of my beams as being in tension or in compression. Now let's remind ourselves of the definitions of tension and compression here. Tension is when a beam is being pulled apart. Compression is when a beam is being pushed in on itself, pushed inwards. Now, in looking at these arrows here, which I've just transferred from my last diagram, like these two arrows were both pointing inwards along this beam, I've gotten rid of some of the clutter and some of the numbers and just drawn two arrowheads pointing inwards along that beam. But figuring out tension and compression is a tiny bit counterintuitive because this beam is pushing itself inwards to react to an external force which is trying to pull it apart. So it's the opposite of what you normally think. This beam is being pulled apart by a force in tension. So let's label that as tension. And I'm going to label that, I believe, was 141.4 newtons along that beam. This one here, they're pointing inwards, which means it's reacting to a force trying to pull it apart. That's also tension with a force of 100 newtons. This diagonal force you see, the bar itself is trying to pull back apart because some external force is pushing it inwards on itself. So that is compression with the force of 141.4 newtons. Okay? This beam down the bottom is also reacting to being pushed inwards on itself, so that's in compression with a force of 100 newtons. This beam right here is also in compression with a force of 100 newtons. Those numbers just came from looking back on the previous page. I do want my connections, my pin connection and roller connection forces to be labeled. We recall this force is a reaction force of 200 newtons, and the other was a reaction force of 100 newtons. This one pointing upwards, this one pointing downwards. Okay? And this one, of course, was 0. We have now completed our truss calculation. Thanks for bearing with me. I know it was long and somewhat difficult, but if you keep up the studying and use this video to help you as you work on similar type questions, or as you study to take a quiz in the near future, then you will be successful with all your truss calculations. Good luck and good night.